What up, though? It's your boy Big Snoop DL Double J. Oh my God. Gotta give a shout out to
DJ
Magix. You can hit him up at his Instagram. It's Magix the Man at MAGIXTHEMAN.
All right, this is the Outside the Box podcast distributed exclusively on iHeartRadio, and I have my guest here with me today, an incredible A&R executive in the music industry, from music distribution, rights management, music analytics, digital tools, and also music marketing. Can you just give us a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and what you do, and kind of how you got started in the industry?
Yeah, of course. I am a producer manager, A&R, and artist manager in Los Angeles, and I also A&R consultant at 1RPM. I'm from New York, but I moved to LA about like 3 or 4 years ago. When my managing roster started to pick up some traction. Yeah, man, it's the gist of it.
Awesome. So how'd you kind of get into the music realm? Was it, I just happened to notice that like in the music game, because I started as a musician before I got into like iHeartRadio and before I got into like A&R work myself. I started as a guitarist myself, and I noticed a lot of people in the music industry started with music. Is that the same for you?
Yeah, to be honest, like I grew up playing a few instruments, but nothing really too like particularly, like I didn't really go too crazy as like, a musician at all. I really just always had like a very big interest in music. I mean, growing up as a kid, I was really only into like music and sports, and that's about it. And then when I was about like 16 or 17, when I started looking at colleges, I noticed that Drexel University had a music industry program, and I was like, that's interesting. Like, I had no idea you could even like pursue that as like an education option. This was like 2013, 2014. And then I went to college at the time it was music industry, ended up transferring to Pace University, and that's kind of where I got my start. When I transferred to Pace in New York, I essentially got an internship with APG, the Artist Partners Group, under my now good friend Matt McFarland, who's kind of like my mentor back in the day. He's now the VP of A&R there, and I kind of started by just, working for free, like just about everyone else. And then that sort of, because my job at APG was like very production heavy, I was mainly like, my main job was scouting for producers pretty much, unsigned producers and stuff like that to add on to artist projects that APG was working on. At the time, it was like Kevin Gates, Wiz Khalifa, Kehlani, some Young Thug stuff, and my job was pretty much to just find producers. So I think I was like 19. So at age 19, I just really like started like building an ear for music production, and that's kind of where I blossomed into today. As a producer manager, I just always had like a knack for finding, up and coming producers who are generating real income and have real catalogs, but are, not necessarily like a huge mainstream name just yet. I've just been really good at identifying those leads. And that's kind of where I blossomed into a producer manager, artist manager, and I now co-run a music management company out here in LA with my partner Brandon. And as far as the A&R stuff at 1RPM, I mean, that all kind of just goes hand in hand with each other. My boss, his name's Joseph Aldelaney. He's the VP of A&R over there. He and I have just always been buddies, just from living in LA and working in music and having a ton of mutual friends. And he needed a consultant sometime like, I don't know, a year and a half, 2 years ago, and he hit me up, and we ended up working together. And from that point on, I think I've signed like 10, 12 artists over there. So, definitely working hard over there. But yeah, that's really like the really brief version of, how I got started.
Exactly. And, that's interesting to kind of hear your journey there. And it sounds like it's really built off of relationships, because you said some key things. You said mentorship. How important was that for you? Because essentially there's people I notice, like maybe they'll get a degree in business. That's kind of how it was for me, getting a degree in business and a master's as well. It had nothing to do with music aside from me making music, but I just knew how to like intern and hustle my way there. How was that experience for you? Because I know you went to school to study music, but then you also had the relationships. Like how was that experience college-wise?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, honestly, mentorship is everything in my eyes. As far as if anyone wants to break into like a creative music job like an A&R or manager or anything like that, you know, it's definitely in their best interest to not just rely on school. I mean, that's my best advice, because if I never networked or, you know, put my name out there or anything when I was, you know, 18, 19, 20 in college, I wouldn't have met any of the people that really propelled me to like this point. But yeah, I mean, school is, a lot of the programs, like the music industry programs, are amazing. NYU has a great one. Obviously, Drexel has a great one. Belmont down in Nashville is a really good one. But truthfully, you know, if I never met Matt at APG, or, I mean, I met Joseph later on, but him too, Tyler Arnold at Republic was another big help when I was, you know, super young. And, you know, all those people, they kind of just, I feel like if you're a super young kid and you're just looking to get experience, hitting up random execs and whatnot is probably the best way to get your foot in the door, just because, you know, when you're just learning at school and you're not necessarily, you know, throwing your hat to the ring and just, you know, maybe you're like applying to an internship every now and then, it's not really like the most effective way of going about it, because there's hundreds of other kids who are applying for those same internships, you know? And I just found my foot in the door through literally just connecting with these people. Actually, I completely forgot to mention this. One of the ways that I would like connect with people back when I was like a freshman in college, since I went to school in Philly, it wasn't necessarily like a music industry mecca per se. I mean, there are a ton of, you know, indie labels, marketing companies. You know, there are some things out there that are beneficial for students, but because I wanted to break into A&R and management, stuff like that, I would literally just reach out to random tour managers or managers of artists that I saw were playing concerts in Philadelphia. And I would just say like, hey, I'm a 18-year-old freshman at Drexel. I'm just looking to get some experience. I'd love to do your merch for free. You don't have to pay me or anything. Just to like literally meet these people. And that's how I met Matt at APG. He manages an artist who had a concert. I reached out to him on some like, you know, let me just do your merch. I had no idea even what APG was. And honestly, at the time, I wasn't even considering anything in A&R. I was just looking to like, you know, meet somebody. And he hit me back and he was like, actually, we have everything settled for merch, but send me over your top 10 favorite unsigned artists. And, you know, I'd love to maybe chat with you about helping me out at APG. And I was like, oh my God, like,
wow.
That was not what I was expecting at all. And yeah, he and I worked together for pretty much my whole college career. And, you know, the whole reason why I say that mentorship is so important in that light is because when Matt and I first started working together, everyone's named Matt in the music industry apparently, but when he and I first started working together, he was a pretty new hire. He had only been at the company for like, I don't know, 6 months. He had just graduated from college, and, you know, he was the manager of A&R, and now he's the VP, you know, some years later. And, you know, that's just like, I think the best example to give people is, you know, connecting with people who are at these companies. You never know what's going to happen to them. And obviously, you know, now he's, you know, the big dog over there. You know, we're still great friends, so it's, you know, it's all a great relationship and all that. But yeah, man, I mean, mentorship is everything. You know, I honestly see a ton of A&Rs now at all these labels who might not necessarily have gone to college, and they just have like a really great ear and a really great sense of like, you know, what's hot in the streets and, you know, what's buzzing and whatnot. And truthfully, I feel like having a strong network is just as important as, you know, having a college degree.
Absolutely. That's really good. So just like essentially just recapping on that mentorship, you weren't afraid to like put yourself out there. You just asked to work for free, really the hands-on experience. And I can totally relate. And many times you'd be so surprised. That's kind of what the differentiation is for those that do have education. It's kind of like, what work are you willing to put in outside of the schoolwork, because a lot of it's just really networking and it's just putting yourself out there. And, you know, sometimes you got to get your hands dirty and want to work for free. And that's how you kind of get in that realm. So that's incredible advice there. So just kind of pivoting to 1RPM, being able to maximize the value of music for the clientele, the roster, the artist, putting that global footprint behind them, local support, proprietary technology, smart analytics, preferred partnerships with DSPs, genre-focused marketing teams, and promotional expertise. Can you kind of just give us an idea of how you guys deliver that to your clients, and what is that ideation process? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, 1RPM is one of many, you know, high-powered distribution companies in the music industry. At this point, there's One RPM is obviously the one that I'm biased towards, but there's AWOL, Sony Orchard has a great one. There's so many companies out there who offer similar suites of services. To be honest, I don't know. You can go either way. I think with artists nowadays that are in the, that are obviously independent, if they're signed to a label, they obviously can't get a distribution deal with another person that breaches their contract. But for independent artists, I think it's a great move because, having those suites of services are, so clutch and for a multitude of reasons, obviously marketing and all that. But truthfully, I feel like my best advice, I see a lot of artists who aren't necessarily building a lot of traction just yet, trying, I just need a distribution deal and I'm going to be huge. Or, they say the same things about managers, like so many artists that are, not necessarily at a point yet where they need representation. They're like, hey, if I just have a manager, I'll be huge.
Right.
And, the truth is that, man, I'm not trying to give bad advice or anything, but I just feel like so many artists that aren't ready yet try and skip a bunch of steps. And truthfully, the only real way, I think, for an artist to kind of get the attention of those people that they're gunning for is to just build it on their own and try and get people to come. Because honestly, that's where the biggest success stories that I've seen in my career in distribution, in my career, just as a manager in an A&R, I've seen mostly a ton of artists that are, building something independently on their own, and then they go partner with a distributor. Because at the end of the day, at 1 RPM, our main job is to essentially just throw fuel onto the fire. You need to kind of come with a bit of something, to show for yourself, obviously, or else it wouldn't make sense to justify putting dollars behind it or putting any types of cents behind it. And that's typically where the conversation starts is, how can we justify spending X amount of dollars on this artist? You got to go on the back end, you ask how much money they're making and all that, and that's typically how all the deals start. So my best advice for artists that are looking to get, a distribution deal with a distributor or, just any type of help, whether it's on the managerial end or whatever, it's time to try it out for yourself. Do it for 6 months to a year if you're just starting out, see what you can build. Because nowadays in the music industry, we're really just in digital marketing, I would say. It's so easy to literally do anything. You see somebody blow up on TikTok almost on a daily basis just because of, how powerful those algorithms are and how powerful, Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, all that is. Literally anyone could be a superstar tomorrow on their own. So I just feel like if it's going to come down to, something like, I want this or I want that, the best way to get those things that you want is to essentially just, try it out for yourself. And then honestly, that's where all the eyes come in, because that's when you start researching, and that's when, basically, that's when all these A&Rs start calling you and wondering, what your situation is like. And then those deals come because it's all a leverage thing. I use the word leverage a lot. At the end of the day, sorry, the powerful at the end of the day, you got to bring leverage. You can't just go to a company or an A&R or whatever and just say hey, sign me. So, that's my best advice, is just to build leverage.
Exactly. And that's a really big one. It's kind of like for the listeners out there, get out there and, do it for about 6 months to a year, do your own shows, promote over socials, track your revenue, right? So this is a business. And I can only imagine how many people come to you on a daily basis, sign me, whatever it is, or help me. And it's like they have no traction. They might even have good music, but they have no traction whatsoever. And that's just not helpful all the way around the board. It's not helpful for you guys because there's nothing for you to amplify, right? So that's essentially what you artists need to understand is that, if you want to approach an A&R, you have to have things on the table. And I kind of do tell the people that often, is your songs and movies and film soundtracking, right? Or commercials? Do you have brand deals and things that you're working on and that your managers or your team or people, your camp or whatever's helping you do? Are you selling out shows? What kind of releases do you have going? Do you have TikTok challenges going? You got to really think outside the box, no pun intended. So let's kind of just talk about the 1 RPM footprint. I see you guys are everywhere globally, all across the world. How does your experience as an A&R with this company reflect the outreach, right? Because on a certain level, what we do internally on A&R level is basically we'll use a Vibrate or different kinds of softwares to see streams, Shazams, shares. For you in discovering talent, what does that go to for you, software wise, discovery?
Yeah, for sure. Honestly, like, I know this is definitely a lazy answer, but I've found the best stuff on random social media apps, like just scrolling TikTok or IG Reels. But in terms of like actual like quantitative data, I love Chartmetric. Chartmetric's probably like the one that I frequent the most. It's a pay for service. I'm not sure how much it is a month, but it's a great service because you can kind of go in and say the pipeline is usually like finding an artist on TikTok, finding an artist on Instagram, YouTube, you name it, going on to Chartmetric and then really taking a dive into the numbers and seeing what the situation's looking like. Because on Chartmetric, you can see everything from like the obvious stream counts, all that, but they'll also show you like, oh, they're in this playlist and this playlist is giving them, let's say one playlist is generating 50,000 streams a day for a certain artist. It'll tell you right then and there where all those streams are coming from. And honestly, it's a really cool way to kind of like suss out like what an artist is actually doing, because a lot of times, an artist might be on a playlist that's entirely botted and it's a fake playlist and all their streams are not real. And you're like, oh, yikes, definitely don't want to sign somebody like this because, going back to the previous point about building leverage, it's all about having real fans and having a real, generating real motion within your artist career. And then your artist is not going to sign you if all of your numbers are fake or if you're, cutting corners and all that. I mean, that's why I love working with independent artists the most, is because it's like one of the truest ways to not cut corners. I mean, you hear so many stories about huge major label artists, and like major labels, pulling a bunch of strings and
stream
trying
farms,
to like game the system and all. Yeah, exactly. But with indie acts, it's very hard to do that. Obviously the best way to do it is by not cutting corners. But yeah, I mean, I use Chartmetric a lot, and that's really it for the most part. I mean, with artists that I work with directly on the management end, it's a very Spotify for artists is obviously very helpful. Apple Music for artists is very helpful. On the ad front, just I love using what's it called, ToneDen, which is a super dope ad platform that connects with your Facebook ad marketplace, and it's a really cool way to kind of target the right people that you're looking to target for ads and stuff like that. But yeah, that's kind of not really artist discovery. But yeah, man, that's my best advice for finding artists and stuff like that.
I see you guys provide a lot of resources on your website, so that's really cool. So you got like a Spotify 101 artist guide, YouTube 101 artist guide, social media tutorial,
right,
and also just artist resources on the 1RPM blog. Can you kind of talk about that a little bit? Just like what kind of resources people can find, and how does that, like I guess like, is it kind of like a prerequisite kind of level of things you can follow that would make you eligible to work with the 1RPM through those resources?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily put it as like eligible to work with us, because any artist can go onto 1RPM and make an account and sign up and deliver their music via 1RPM. But the resources and the information and stuff like that, it's honestly just a resource for independent artists. I mean, we do distribution deals, obviously. We even do some deals where we would sign the masters, so like kind of like on the label end. But there's a huge section of the business that are just straight up independent artists who are just using the platform to distribute their own music without any help from our marketing team or support team, because they're not ready yet. Those are what we call the tier 1 artists. And those resources, it's just like a general pool of information that could be very helpful for artists, and honestly a ton of distributors do similar stuff where whether it's on the website or a newsletter or you name it, an email that gets sent to your account every day. It's pretty common for a distributor to just supply those resources, because independent artists are what runs the business. So any way that we could help independent acts who aren't necessarily at a point where they need a marketing budget, where they need to shoot a $20,000 music video or something like that, it's for those people. But yeah.
Got it. And for the listeners that just aren't aware, just because maybe they're new to this, can you explain like what a distribution deal is specifically, aside from just like, because I think people kind of get it confused a little bit, because they can sign up to a TuneCore or a, you know what I mean? I think at one point Universal had a spin up, different things like that. Like that's just basic distribution, but can you explain a tier 2 distribution deal?
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, typically, I would say like those artists fall in between like minimum like 300 to 500,000 monthly listener mark on Spotify. Then it honestly consists of a lot of similar things that you can see in your classic record deal with, an Atlantic Records or whatever. Obviously there's no specific, language in there that pertains to like master ownership or things like that of that nature. But deals like a distribution deal like that will typically include an advance fee, which, it's a recoupable advance that would be against your earnings for either your back catalog or the future releases, depending on the nature of the deal. More times than not, we are picking up the distribution rights to these artists' catalogs because they were distributing on, you name it, DistroKid, TuneCore, et cetera, CD Baby, there's so many out there now. And then once you get those distribution rights, then that money, or not that money, but those songs get transferred over to 1RPM. And then, let's say we sign you and you get a $50,000 advance, then that advance would have to, or those songs would have to generate $50,000, and then you start earning from $1 on, depending on whatever the deal structure is. But typically with 1RPM, we only take 10 or 15%. I believe it's 10%. And yeah, that's typically the gist of it. And then obviously there's a marketing expense if that is in the deal points. Mainly that's for, when we sign a back catalog and have new releases. So if your back catalog goes to 1RPM and then you have, let's say 10 new songs that you got to release with us, then we would allocate whatever that marketing expense is towards releasing those songs. It's honestly a really great place to be. And, I'm not saying anything out of the ordinary here. AWOL is incredible and all the other distributors are incredible and offer very similar things. When you get to this point, typically you get a project manager and, outside of just having an A&R, you have a dedicated contact to kind of manage your entire release strategy and all that. And it's a really great, it's a really great place to be for independent acts because it really allows the independent artists to, just focus on creating and focus on putting their music out instead of, having to deal with all the nonsense of having to market your music and having to spend all this money, it's all in one place. So it's a really great place.
Exactly. So let's talk a little bit about what's next for you. So obviously A&R, 1RPM, like what's the next big goal, the next big step for yourself? And I know you said you have your own agency. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I work at a management company. It's called Raw Material, founded by the Brad Cohen, who's a fucking beast. I love him. He managed Trevor Daniel back when Trevor Daniel had a platinum, like multiple times platinum, record called Falling. But since then, he's gone on to work with Travis Barker, Landon Barker, this really dope artist I work with now called Z Wills. And I got connected with him through another client of mine when I worked with this company called Raw Material. And me and my business partner, Brandon, who's kind of like my co-pilot with all my management clients, he and I met at an old job that I had out of college. I was hired as an A&R at this production company called Nomad Music Group back in 2019. And we connected over an artist there that I had called Lil West. And I still manage Lil West to this day. But honestly, as an artist manager, I have 7 producers and 3 artists right now. So my plate is definitely full on the management end. So to be real with you, and, I know this is, definitely doesn't help this conversation at all, but I'm honestly probably going to look to just do management full time because it's my own business, if that makes sense. I love obviously being on salary and, having a consistent paycheck is incredible and it's very nice for, paying bills and rent and all that. But the more that my individual business builds, the more I'm realizing, how important time allocation is and, really budgeting my time and, realizing what is the best return on investment with, my investment being my time, not necessarily monetarily. And, truthfully, my clients have worked with, Offset, Lil Key, Young Gravy, Trippie Redd, Polo G, you name it. All my clients have worked with a bunch of huge artists on the production end. And the more songs that my guys get, the more money we're making. And truthfully, I would love to essentially just work for myself full time. And, that's honestly where I'm headed. the distribution A&R game is incredible, and I love working there. And honestly, being able to empower independent artists is like the whole reason why I even got started working in music to begin with. So it's, a true dream come true. But, there's something about working for yourself that just has, that has a lot of benefits, and it's, a real luxury, and I'm super fortunate for it. But yeah, in terms of what's next, I'm probably just going to end up managing full time and just running my own little ship.
Awesome. Appreciate you so much. And for those that want to get in touch with you or just watch what you're doing, see more, can you drop your socials, like your Instagram?
Yeah, for sure. My @ on Instagram, Twitter, all that is @826 Matty, Matty.
Appreciate you so much, Matt, for taking the time. This is DJ Magix, MAGIXTHEMAN, back at you again with some more information, and keep thinking outside the box.